It was supposed to be the happiest day of Ethan's life. He had been waiting years to marry Liana. From their late-night walks to their tear-filled fights to the quiet moments of absolute peace, they'd been through it all. So when their wedding day finally came, he didn't expect anything to go wrong. But something did. And it started with a veil. The ceremony began perfectly. The church was glowing with sunlight, guests were smiling, and soft music floated through the air. Ethan stood at the altar, nervous but ready, adjusting his cufflinks as the doors opened. There she was, his bride, walking slowly down the aisle draped in white. The veil covered her face completely, just as planned. Liana moved gracefully, like she always did. He felt a surge of emotion as she stepped beside him and took his hand. Her touch startled him. It felt distant, almost unfamiliar, like holding the hand of someone trying to mimic closeness. Still, he told himself it was just nerves. The ceremony continued. Vows were exchanged. Her voice was softer than he remembered, quieter, almost rehearsed. But in that moment, Ethan didn't care. Everyone was watching. Everything looked right. Why question it? Then the priest spoke the final line. "You may now kiss the bride." Ethan reached forward and lifted the veil. And froze. It wasn't Liana. The woman standing in front of him was someone else, a stranger. "Who are you?" he whispered through clenched teeth. The woman didn't flinch. She just smiled. "It's me, Liana," she said calmly. "No," he replied, barely audible. "You're not." "Yes," she said again, slipping her arm into his. "I am." The guests were already standing, cheering, tossing petals as they walked back down the aisle. Ethan kept walking, feeling dizzy, trying to hold himself together. Outside the church, he pulled her aside. "Tell me what this is. Where's Liana?" he demanded, his voice sharper now. The woman tilted her head slightly. "Ethan, what's going on with you?" she asked, sounding genuinely confused. "Stop it. Don't pretend," he snapped. "I'm not pretending. You're scaring me," she said, still disturbingly calm. She sounded too calm. And the worst part was, she looked just enough like Liana to make everyone else believe her. But Ethan knew better. He knew every inch of Liana's face, the slight gap in her front teeth, the tiny scar under her chin from when she fell off her bike as a kid. This woman didn't have it. He pulled out his phone and called Liana. No answer. Called again. Still nothing. He tried texting her. The message was delivered. No reply. Ethan stepped away from the noise and tried calling Liana's sister twice. No answer. The call didn't even connect. Strange. She was supposed to be part of the bridal party. Why wouldn't she be here? Why wasn't she with Liana this morning? His unease deepened. Searching for some clarity, he called Liana's old college roommate, someone who knew her better than most. She picked up, groggy but familiar. "Ethan? Oh my God. I'm so sorry I couldn't be there," she said. "Something came up last minute and I had to travel. I feel horrible missing the big day." Ethan forced a polite chuckle. "It's okay," he said. Then after a pause he added, "Hey, random question, Liana still has that tiny scar under her chin, right?" There was a short silence. "Scar? I don't think so. At least I've never noticed one," she replied. Ethan's heart skipped. That was it. That was the moment everything around him, the music, the clinking glasses, the fake smiles, started to blur. Photos were taken. Toasts were made. And through it all, Ethan played along while inside he was unraveling. He tried to keep his distance, asking quiet questions. But every time, she shut him down gently, with the same firm denial. "Ethan, you're tired," she told him. "Don't ruin this," she said. "Why are you acting like this on our wedding day?" She even knew things only Liana would know, private things. Little details from conversations they'd had. How? Was she a look-alike? A twin? Or had he somehow been tricked? By dinner, he was spiraling. Nothing made sense. The woman beside him was playing her role perfectly, smiling at guests, laughing at speeches. Everyone was convinced she was Liana. Everyone. Except Ethan. He finally got a chance to speak to Liana's maid of honor in private. "Hey, that's not her," he said quietly. She looked at him confused. "What? That's not Liana," he repeated, voice low and steady. She laughed awkwardly. What are you talking about? He leaned in. Look at her closely. That's not her face. Not her laugh. Something's wrong. But she just shook her head and brushed him off. Ethan, you're stressed. You need to get some rest. By the end of the night, Ethan stood alone outside the venue, staring into the darkness. The woman who was now legally his wife stood inside, laughing, dancing with his family, acting like she belonged there forever. And for the first time, Ethan began to question his own sanity. What if everyone was right? What if he was overthinking? Or, what if he was the only one finally waking up? Ethan didn't sleep that night. He stayed in the guest room, locking the door behind him. She, the woman who insisted she was Liana, had tried to speak to him once more before calling it a night, her expression soft and hesitant. But he couldn't. Not then. Maybe not ever. I don't know you, he told her, voice hollow. Please don't come in here. The door clicked shut behind him, and for the next few hours, he lay on top of the covers, eyes fixed on the ceiling, heart pounding with questions. The weeks that followed were a nightmare stitched into reality. Both his family and Liana's acted as if everything were fine. Worse, as if they truly believed she was Liana. Her mother hugged her warmly. Her father even made a toast at a small post-wedding dinner, eyes full of pride. Ethan watched them all, a knot forming in his stomach. Were they all in on it? Or was he losing his grip? He told her plainly, "Until you tell me the truth, I'm not your husband. I can't be." At first she seemed quiet, then confused, then over time sad. Not defensive, not angry, just sad. She moved around their shared home gently, as if trying not to startle him. She cooked for him, left notes wishing him a good day, never tried to touch him, never raised her voice. There were nights when he heard her crying softly in the other room. Ethan told himself not to care. She was a stranger, an actor, an imposter. But he couldn't ignore that her sadness seemed real. He began to investigate. He sifted through emails, social media posts, call logs, checked old accounts, read through countless messages. A few things stood out: a strange gap in communication between Liana and her closest friends right before the wedding, a deleted group chat, a missing folder of photos. Took months, but eventually he found something. An old family reunion photo in one of Liana's dusty albums, with the date scrawled on the back, taken 10 years ago. He studied it closely. In the background was a face that seemed oddly familiar. A girl who looked almost exactly like the woman he had married. He uploaded the photo to a visual search engine, looking for any matches. And there it was, a match. A link to a long-abandoned social media account under the name Sofia Calderon. Scrolling through the posts, he nearly gave up, until he stumbled on 2 pictures. In both, Sofia stood beside 3 other girls, one of them unmistakably Liana. One caption read, "My cousins and I at our favorite hideout." The other, "Whenever we need a break, there's only one place to go." Ethan studied the details in the background: a rusted mailbox number, the style of the porch, a distinct row of pine trees. After some research, he managed to trace the location to a quiet house in a town thousands of miles away. With nothing left to lose, he took a chance and made the journey. When he knocked on the door, Liana opened it. The shock in her eyes was immediate. Ethan stood frozen. It was her. Really her. She looked different, paler, older somehow, and weighed down with guilt. The moment she saw him, her eyes welled up. "I'm sorry," she whispered, even before he could speak. "Why?" Ethan asked, his voice shaking. "I was scared," she said. "I didn't want to get married. I didn't want to hurt you. But I just couldn't go through with it. When I told my family, they were furious. They had planned everything, the perfect wedding, the perfect image. Calling it off would have made them look bad. I told your family too. They were horrified. Told me not to even think about ruining their son's big day. I felt cornered, pressure from both sides. It became too much." Ethan said nothing, just stared, waiting for the explanation that would justify everything. "I told both families that I had made up my mind. I was going to leave. And if they tried to stop me, I'd walk out in the middle of the ceremony. They panicked. That's when my family came up with the idea. To replace me with my cousin Sofia. We showed your family her pictures. They saw the resemblance and agreed. It was all about saving face. At first, Sophia refused. She didn't want to be part of it. But she needed the money, and when we increased the offer, she finally gave in. Ethan's jaw clenched. So you made plans with everyone except me? You made decisions about my life and couldn't even talk to me. I couldn't face you, she said. I knew how badly you wanted to get married. I didn't want to break your heart. That's why I went to everyone else, because I couldn't bear to tell you. He looked at her, stunned. You thought marrying me off to someone else without my knowledge would somehow be better? Who gave you the right to decide what was best for me? You took away my choice. I know, she whispered, tears now running freely. I know what I did was wrong. I feel horrible about it. I wish I could take it back. Please, Ethan. Please forgive me. He stared at her for a long moment, then shook his head slowly. Save it, he said quietly. Your apology doesn't change anything. The damage is done. And with that, he turned and walked away. Back home, Ethan returned carrying a storm within him. The next morning, seated across from Sophia at the dining table, he finally confronted her. I found a place where I thought Liana might have been hiding all this time, he said plainly. I went there hoping I'd find her, and I did. Sophia's eyes widened, quickly filling with tears. I'm sure she told you everything, she said, her voice trembling. Honestly, I'm kind of relieved. It's been such a burden pretending to be someone I'm not. It didn't look like a burden, he said, his tone flat. You seemed more than willing to do it for the money. I wouldn't expect you to understand, she replied quietly. You've never had to struggle. You've always had everything at your fingertips. You don't know what it's like to carry the weight of your family's needs. I worked 2 jobs and it was still never enough. So yeah, maybe I got selfish and took the easy way out for once. At the expense of someone else's happiness? He asked, the pain raw in his voice. You had me questioning my own sanity. I'm sorry, she whispered, breaking into tears. You have no idea how much it hurt to watch you suffer searching endlessly for answers. So many times I wanted to tell you the truth, but it was bigger than me. Too many people were involved. I was scared of what it would do to you, to your family. He let out a long, heavy breath. What you did was wrong, but I can't put all the blame on you. It's clear you were pressure-backed into a corner. They used your situation against you. And despite everything, I believe you were still yourself through it all. You were kind to me even when you didn't have to be. Someone else in your place might have just played the part and collected the money. But not you. You cared. A heavy silence settled between them. Well, she finally said, standing up. Now that you know everything, I guess it's time I pack my things. She turned toward the stairs, but Ethan stood up and gently took her hand. Sophia, he said softly, I want you to stay. I want to make up for how I treated you. She looked stunned. Ethan, you did exactly what anyone else would have done. I don't deserve your kindness, not after the way I deceived you. What you did isn't worse than what Liana did, he said. You didn't know me, you owed me nothing. Liana knew me. She owed me everything. He took a breath, then smiled warmly. Sophia, I believe everything happens for a reason. Maybe, just maybe, Liana did me a favor in the end. I'm ready to see where this goes if you are. A few weeks later, the door opened. Liana walked in just like that, using the same old keys she never returned. Ethan and Sophia were on the couch watching a show. Peaceful, comfortable. Liana stood in front of them. Her makeup was smudged, her eyes wide, full of something between panic and hope. She looked at Ethan. Please, forgive me, she said softly. I made a mistake. I was scared, but I'm ready now. Ready to give you everything you ever wanted. Let's start over. She smiled. Ethan stared at her, stunned. Are you serious right now? He asked, rising to his feet. You think you can just walk in and out of my life whenever you please, and expect me to welcome you back every time you decide you're ready? Liana stepped closer. Everything I did was for us, Ethan. It was to prepare us for this moment. No, Ethan said, shaking his head. We were ready. A long time ago. And if something changed, you could have told me. We could have worked through it together. But you didn't. You ran. You left me. And now you think you can show up and hit reset. I know I hurt you, she said, her voice softer. But we can fix it. Promise. We can work through it. Her eyes shifted from Ethan to Sophia, and she offered a soft, almost grateful smile. I really want to thank you, Sophia, for being here while I was gone. I know it couldn't have been easy for either of us, but I never once doubted that Ethan was in good hands. She paused, her tone warm but composed. Now that I'm back, I'll make sure you get everything you're owed. I'll keep my end of the agreement. You've done your part, your work here is done. You're free to leave. Sophia stared at her, confused. Leave? What are you talking about? Liana laughed lightly, like she knew something they didn't. It's okay, she said. He knows now. There's no need to pretend. I'm back. But Sophia didn't flinch. I'm not pretending, she said calmly. Did you forget I married Ethan? At that altar in front of everyone. Yes, maybe it started for the wrong reasons. But we've both decided to make it real. She reached for Ethan's hand, and he took it without hesitation. Liana's smile faded. Ethan looked her in the eye. You were right about one thing, he said. Everything you did led us here. And for that, I'll always be grateful, because it brought Sophia into my life. I've found my happiness now, and I'm not giving it up. He pulled Sophia into a quiet hug, the kind that doesn't need words. Liana stood there, frozen, watching the life she once walked away from, and knowing now, it was never coming back. Ethan and Sophia's story was a quiet reminder that love doesn't need a perfect beginning, only the right choice at the right time. What began in uncertainty grew into something real, and in that truth they built a life filled with trust, joy, and lasting love. The end.